4 paragraphs, 1 column, no byline. June 1976. It says that in Paris, scored by French judges, California beat France's best. Look closer. The winning red is printed as a 1972. The wine was a 1973. The most famous page in wine got his most important fact wrong. And that, it turns out, is the story. This is what happened when people started checking. For 50 years, all the way to 2026. First, the legend, Stephen Spurrier, an English wine merchant with a Paris shop and France's first private wine school. By Time's account, the idea was his American colleague Patricia Gallagher's, California Wines, for the American bicentennial. And 2 weeks out, Spurrier made it a blind competition. 6 California Chardonnays against 4 white Burgundies. 6 California Cabernets against 4 Bordeaux. 9 French judges, the co-director of Romanée Conti, the head sommelier of La Tour d'Argent, the owner of Taillevent, in a hotel on the Rue de Castiglione on May 24th, 1976. Each wine graded out of 20, the grades simply added. Best white, Château Montelena. Best red, Stag's Leap Wine Cellars, by 1.5 points on the official count. 5th place, a mountain vineyard called Ridge Montebello. Remember 5th. One journalist was in the room. The unthinkable happened, he wrote. California defeated all Gaul. What France said next kept it alive for half a century. The journalist was George Taber of Time, the only reporter who came. He turned it down himself at first. Everybody knows that French wines are going to win, he would tell Time, so why waste a day? What made the result unbearable wasn't losing. Tasting blind, the judges had praised what they took for French and doubted what they took for Californian. Back to France, said over a California Chardonnay. The aftermath, as Jancis Robinson cataloged it, the panel's one magazine editor, Odette Kahn of La Revue du Vin de France, demanded her tasting notes back. A published attack alleged the tasting was rigged. The head of the Appellation Authority was asked to resign. So was the owner of Taillevent, one of the 9. And Spurrier was physically thrown out of a cellar in Burgundy. Underneath the fury sat a real argument. The scoring was genuinely strange. The same bottle of Ridge Montebello, 17 out of 20 from one judge, 7 from another. Kahn scored 2 California Reds, 2 out of 20. No other judge went that low on either wine. Economists later measured the room. The panel agreed more than chance allows. Yet 3 of the 11, 9 judges and 2 organizers, correlated negatively with their colleagues. Still, the objection France settled on was simpler. It came with a date. Ridge's record of the judge's response. The California wines would not age. Taste them again in 30 years, and France would win. Hold the strange arithmetic. Its reckoning comes at the end. All anyone had to do was wait. Now, the part the legend leaves out. France never accepted the verdict, but France never demanded a rematch either. Every rerun was staged by the other side, the Americans and the Englishmen. France itself never staged one. Jancis Robinson's account, a rerun in New York in May 1986, because the French argued that their wines failed to shine because they were too young. Her 3-word verdict, California triumphed again. Too young? Fine, wait longer. May 24th, 2006. 30 years to the day, Spurrier convened the original Reds one last time. 9 experts at Berry Brothers and Rudd in London. 9 at Copia in Napa simultaneously. 1 original 1976 judge on each side. Also tasting in London, Jancis Robinson. The California wines were past 30, the age France had named for their collapse. Favorite wine of the London panel, Ridge Montebello, 1971. Favorite wine of the Napa panel, Ridge Montebello, 1971. The wine that finished 5th in Paris had won on both sides of the Atlantic. Stag's Leap second, 30-year-old California, the top 5 of 10. The one French objection with a date on it was dead. To see what was at stake by then, look at what had been built in the verdict's name. Time had called the winning bottles rather expensive, $6 plus. 1975, the year before the tasting, 330 California wineries. By 2004, 1,689, and most of America's $643 million in annual wine exports. Those figures come from a museum's records. The story didn't just survive, it got collected. Both winning bottles stand today in the National Museum of American History. Not bad for kids from the sticks, Jim Barrett of Montelena told Time in 1976. The man who made Barrett's winning Chardonnay was Mike Grgic, a Croatian immigrant. The year after the tasting, he co-founded the winery that carries his name. He died in 2023 at 100, and his beret sits in the same museum as the bottles. The museum's director, in 2026, the 1976 Judgment of Paris, forever changed the way the world viewed American wine. A 1.5-point margin on 9 scorecards had hardened into an American origin myth on permanent display, which makes 2026, the 50th anniversary, the strangest chapter in this story. They ran it again and again. 2 of them changed the answer. March 24th, 2026, New York. A tasting billed without apology as the Redo. 12 judges, proctored by the French master sommelier, Pascaline Lepelletier. Today's American wines against today's French, blind. If you know the legend, you know how this ends. America wins. And it did, except in the category the legend was built on. Cabernet. The red crown went back to Bordeaux. Château Latour 2017. 2 months later, the anniversary itself, May 24th, a San Francisco panel poured both halves of the question. What follows is the account of its organizer, the critic James Suckling. First, the historic flight. The original bottles, more than 50 years old. California, still 4 of the top 5. Heights Martha's Vineyard, 1970. First, Ridge Montebello, second. And down the card, The Reckoning, the famous Stag's Leap finished 7th. Haut-Brion, 1970, finished 8th. The bottles outlived the aging argument. The old order did not. Then, the contemporary flight. Today's vintages, California against Bordeaux, blind. First, on a tiebreak over Ridge Montebello 2013, Château Haut-Brion 2016. Hold on to that name. 50 years of reruns, and the scoreboard reads, Old Wines, America, the New Reds, France. The legend says this story ended in 1976. The bottles disagree, and the strangest verdict of all was never in a glass. It had been sitting in the original scorecards all along, waiting for someone to add them up differently. In 2009, the Journal of Wine Research published a recount of the original red flight. Same 9 judges, same scorecards. One change. Instead of adding raw points, every judge's ranking counted equally. A voting rule called the Borda count. Under that count, the winner of the red flight is not Stag's Leap. It is Château Haut-Brion, the same chateau that won the modern flight in 2026. Add the points instead, 9 judges or 11, and Stag's Leap wins. Rank all 11, and Stag's Leap wins again, because Spurrier and Gallagher, the 2 whose ballots never officially counted, had ranked Haut-Brion, 9th and 10th of 10. The lever is human. The famous result was not wrong, it was contingent. Run the same recount on the whites, and the winner doesn't move. Still Montelena, only the red turns on the arithmetic. The long lens leans the same way, cited scores, not blind. In 2022, economists tracked the same 10 estates across the 40 vintages that followed. The estate that won in Paris ranks 8th of 10. The top 3 are French. First among them, Haut-Brion. Return to the page this film opened on, the misprinted vintage. That error was an omen. Almost every number in this legend moves when you touch it. What never moves is the thing that mattered. In a blind room in 1976, the best palates in France praised what they took for French. And it was California in the glass. That was the revolution. Not that California was better, but that better stopped being an obvious question. The reckoning cuts both ways. France's objection was wrong. The California wines aged, and the top of every rematch of the originals stayed American. The legend is wrong too. The modern answer is closer than it admits. In the modern reds, in 2026, it was France, twice. But the surest thing all that checking ever found was a wine the legend barely mentions. Ridge Montebello, the 1971, fifth in 1976, first at both panels in 2006, second among the originals in 2026. It was the one that started fifth. 50 years of recounts. And the only thing Paris ever settled is that the glass has to be blind. The wine to remember was never the famous one. Real stories from the ground up, that's what this channel is for. Subscribe.